What's up, fam? Welcome back to Big Picture Podcast, where we discuss faith, testimonies, and perspectives while focusing on the big picture. I am your host, Susan Obi. Happy Wednesday. Thank you for joining in and listening to Big Picture. I post episodes every other Wednesday. This is a faith-based podcast where we discuss testimonies and y'all get opportunities to hear testimonies and stories. We discuss perspectives. Everyone has a different perspective, and that is how we learn. That is how I learn, by listening to other people's perspectives with a focus on the big picture. So at the end of each episode, we always talk about what is the big picture. If you have not already subscribed to my YouTube channel, you can go ahead and do that if you have been listening to and enjoying the episodes. For today's episode, I am going to get right into it. I'm going to be talking about why I chose not to reapply to medical school. This is a story that I'm not sure that I have publicly shared, and by publicly, I just mean with friends or family much at all. It's kind of a decision that I came to on my own, did talk about it with family a little bit, but just something that I thought about that I just wanted to share. I wanted to talk about this because there is something that is on my mind periodically. I was just catching up with an old friend the other day and just talked about this concept of life and how sometimes we can have a specific dream or goal and work towards that goal, but then along the way find something else that you love doing, or maybe you're working towards that goal and then life happens, you get married or have kids, or just for any reason not able to actually get to that goal that you've wanted to do, or maybe you've tried over and over and over and it just has not worked. So I just wanted to talk about my journey and why I actually chose not to reapply to medical school. So from the beginning, I just from a really, really young age, based on what my family and family friends have told me, have always said that I want to be a missionary doctor. So this is something that I've always said from when I was little, based on what others are telling me. And growing up, just elementary school, middle school, high school, I did know that I wanted to do some sort of missions or ministry, which is pretty much just telling people about Christ. So this is a faith-based podcast. So a lot of my experiences and perspectives come from who I know that Jesus is, based on who he has revealed himself to be in the scriptures and just how I've seen him work in my life. So missions or ministry is just sharing that good news. So that's something that I've always had a passion for doing. I grew up going on mission trips, and I've always said I wanted to do that in the form of medical mission. So you think of things like Doctors Without Borders, or when physicians or clinicians travel overseas to provide some sort of health care. So that's the main goal. And then the underlying goal is to share Jesus with them. So medical mission. So that's something I've said that I've always wanted to do. So after I graduated high school, applied to college, and I was pre-med biology in college and was playing sports. I ran track, and my goal was to apply to medical school. So fast forward to my senior year of college, I had not started any medical school applications on purpose. I wanted to finish up college and then start focus on applications after college. So I'd planned to take a gap year, and I ended up applying to do my master's at University of Missouri. So that was a 2-year program. So I was like, it's 1 year longer than a gap year, but that's fine. It'll look good on my application. It'll strengthen my application. And plus, I'll get a chance to do research, which I just did a little bit in undergrad. So just get into research and just go to grad school. So I applied to University of Missouri, and I got in, and I did my master's in medical pharmacology and physiology. So grad school was one of my favorite experiences that I've had so far. It was such a great and beautiful season. I just met so many people, made so many good friends, had a lot of good conversations, new experiences academically with research, And then I was a teaching assistant. So grad school was just really fun. My sister just started grad school at Vanderbilt, and I was just telling her like this is going to be a really amazing experience cuz I had a good one. So I just loved it. Maybe that's not your story, but I just really enjoyed grad school. So my last semester of graduate school, well, actually, let me go back. So throughout grad school, for my funding, I had to be a research assistant. So I was doing research and writing my thesis, which I would have to present to my committee at the end of my program. And then I also was a teaching assistant. So this was probably my favorite part of grad school, was being a teaching assistant. So my cohort, there was like 6 of us, and twice a week we'd teach physiology to undergrad students for about 4 or 5 hours each day, twice a week on Tuesday and Thursday or something like that. And this was my favorite thing. For some reason, there was just something about interacting with the undergrad students, just kind of hearing their story and just what they want to do in life. Some of them wanted to go to nursing school or medical school or be a scientist or a researcher or go to grad school, but they all had something in common. They had to take that class of physiology. And there was something about imparting knowledge to other people that I just really enjoyed. So I'm learning so much in grad school. My master's is in pharmacology and physiology. So as I'm learning, I'm also sharing with them what they're learning. And then just seeing those light bulbs go off and then ask really good questions, which is something that I really enjoyed, which is not every grad student's story. Some grad students are like, I just want to be in the lab and doing research. I just wanted to teach. So I started thinking about that, and I've known that I've always loved teaching and sharing. In middle school and high school, I was leading small group Bible studies for younger girls for the youth at my church, and that's something that I liked. I was kind of getting more into it and getting comfortable. And then in college, I also did pretty much the same thing, just leading youth Bible studies. But then in grad school, I was doing that too. At my church, I was leading a middle school small group Bible study as well, or co-leading, and then also getting the chance to teach. So I have just always loved that. That's just something that I've known within myself, that I love teaching. So I just started thinking more in grad school, and I knew that I wanted to have some sort of teaching opportunities in my career. So I was telling my advisors and my PI that I love doing this and I want to be able to do this in my career. And they knew I was wanting to apply to medical school, and they're like, yeah, physicians have opportunities to teach their patients and teach their patients' families, and then even lecture part-time here and there. So in my mind, I'm like, okay, if I apply to med school, I'm still going to have an opportunity to teach in some capacity. So fast forward to my last semester of graduate school. At that point, I was writing my thesis, actually starting to finish up my thesis, still analyzing data from my research. I had applied to medical school that last year of grad school, so studied for the MCAT, took the MCAT, completed the applications, got all my recommendation letters in. So that year was just a whirlwind. I got an interview, so I had interviewed for med school. So I finished graduate school May of 2021. So at that point, I had already finished my thesis. I finished a couple months early. I had applied to medical school and had interviewed with medical school, and it was summer. I presented my thesis in April, actually a month early, and then I had a free summer. So I wouldn't hear back. It had been several months since I had my interview. It was sometime my last year of grad school that I got invited for an interview for a medical school, and then it was summer, May 2021. So at this point, I'm like, well, I'm just waiting to see where I'm going to be in the fall, and I'm done with school. I don't have anything. I didn't really need to work a job because I only had 2 months off before I'd be going back to school. So I was just kind of thinking, what I would do. And then I got invited to lead youth mission trips with an organization in the summer of 2021. But at first I declined because I was like, well, if I'm going to go to med school, I kind of want to rest, and I would probably start a little earlier than August, so I didn't want to go on the summer missions for just a little bit of the summer, so I declined. And then they said, well, if you come to do summer missions, you can lead mission trips in Dayton, Ohio. So I went because Dayton is one of my favorite places that I've done missions in. I was first in Dayton in 2017, and that was probably the best summer that I've experienced until date. It was amazing. I've talked about that in my previous podcast episodes. So when they invited me to come back and lead mission trips in Dayton in the summer of 2021, I was like, okay, I can do that. It's fine. I can just be making sure I'm checking my email and note where I'm going to be in the fall. So summer is going on. I'm having an amazing time. I have 2 interns. I'm leading mission trips with the refugee ministry and just hanging out with the staff and just really enjoying my summer until I get an email. And I got an email in the summer that said that I had been waitlisted for medical school. So I got waitlisted. And I think up until this point, I never thought about a wait list as an option because I applied to college, got into college. I applied to grad school, got interviewed, got into my graduate program. I applied to med school. And in my mind, after the interview, I don't remember anything that stood out. I think there was one thing that stood out that I was like, I would have done this differently. But overall, I was like, this was good. It was fine. So in my mind, I was either going to get accepted or denied, just have a straightforward answer. So I got waitlisted. So this was not expected. I was like, I'm either going to be in or out, but it was kind of like a we'll see. You might be in, you might not be in. And getting off the wait list depends on several factors. It's pretty much maybe if they offer other students and those students decline, then students on the or prospective medical students on the wait list would get on, or would get into the school. So it's summer, I'm waiting, and then I'm also praying and thinking, what am I going to do if I don't get in? And I don't think I'd really thought of that or tried to plan for that, but I started thinking and praying more about that and really loved what I was doing in Dayton that summer. And through prayer and just reading the Bible, and then just the ministry staff was asking, would you consider moving here? So that's something that I had kind of thought about, like toyed with the idea, and then I ended up making that decision of if I don't get into medical school, I'm going to move to Dayton and just volunteer with this refugee ministry full time. So it gets towards the end of the summer, literally the very last minute of when I could have known of whether or not I would get in. It's towards the end of the summer, and then I don't get any notification, which they did say ahead of time. If you're not notified by this day, then pretty much you're not in. So I didn't get notified, and then eventually they sent out those emails to students who are on the wait list saying that you will need to reapply if you would like to get in. So it was a little disappointing on one side, but then on the other side, I was like, it's fine. I get to move to Dayton and volunteer with the refugee ministry and just work on my application to apply again. A lot of students are reapplicants. I had a ton of friends in undergrad that applied during school and didn't get in or got waitlisted and then decided to take a gap year. And I just didn't apply until after I finished college. So that was in 2021. So I moved to Dayton the fall in September of 2021, and then I applied to a job as a medical scribe. So I was just going to work as a scribe and retake the MCAT, and I would be volunteering with this organization, this refugee ministry, so that would be on my application as well. So really just doing a lot of things to strengthen my application, and I was going to wait a year so I can have at least 1 year of volunteering or an extra year of volunteering under my belt, 1 year of being a medical scribe. So I was going to wait until 2022 to actually start applying. So fast forward, I'm in Ohio for a year. It's 2022. I'm studying, getting ready to retake the MCAT, and I am looking at who I want to ask for letters of rec, just getting everything ready for my application. And I remember just having this thought of, is this something that I really want to do? And I have no idea where that thought came from. I think after I had that thought, I was like, wait, where is this coming from? Why am I even thinking this way, kind of thing? And I remember just kind of sitting with that and thinking, do I want to reapply to medical school? And then my initial thought after that was, okay, am I asking this question because this is going to be a really, really difficult process and there's a chance I might not get in again? Because the first time, it's your first time doing the application, so you're just taking everything as it's coming, no matter how difficult or time consuming it is, you're just taking everything in. And then after you hit the application button, it's like, okay, whew, like I got through it. But I'm like, is it just the thought of going through that again? Do I just not want to go through this long process again? Am I being lazy? Like all these things, just thinking about why am I asking myself this question? But then I'm like, well, I've done this before. Like I'm usually pretty hardworking and have a good work ethic. And if this is something I want, then I will actually go through and do this again. Like I will be willing to do it. So I remember talking to my brother about it, and I was just like, I am just thinking if I actually want to reapply to medical school. And I think that was so scary because that's something that I've always wanted to do, or at least something I've always said that I've wanted to do. So that was always the plan, and there was not a plan B. So the thought of, well, if I decide I don't want to reapply, there was the thought of, what am I going to do then? I've never thought of or considered another career because it was always medical school. And I remember he just asked me the question, my brother was asking me the question of, so do you want to be a doctor because you want to be a doctor, or because you want to be a doctor? Of like, is this something that you want to go into because you love the field and the career? Or is it because more like you want to be have this title and complete your plans of what you said and just, go through that path that you've been planning out for so many years? Like, what is your reason? And I could think of reasons. I mean, it's a good career, it's stable, it's helping others. I can use that to get into countries to tell people about Jesus. There are so many reasons, but these are just reasons. I had to start thinking about, what are my reasons that I want to do it? Where is that desire coming from and stemming from? And one of the things I could think about was, well, this is something that I've said that I've always wanted to do. So I think that once I got to that point where I realized that I I wasn't sure if I wanted to reapply, that was telling me that I didn't want to reapply. And something else that I thought of too that was a factor for me was time. For some reason, I started thinking about, well, this is another year. Do I want to put in another year for applications and then another 4 years of school where I'm not going to be working and earning an income, and then go to residency for another 3, 4, or 5 years before I actually start making the salary I want to make and being in the position I want to be in? And I just wasn't willing. It was hard for me to actually be willing to sacrifice that time. But I know that's not the case with everyone. Like, I had friends at that time that were applying to medical school, and they're like, yeah, this is worth it. This is worth my time applying. This is worth paying for an MCAT course. This is worth all of the stress I'm going through. It's going to be worth not earning income. Like, there are people in my life at that time that are like, this is worth it. And to me, I just couldn't say the same. I couldn't say that it was going to be worth sacrificing time. So since time became a factor, I was like, okay, maybe I will do PA. So I started thinking about doing PA. It's less school. I'd still be pretty much doing the same thing. It's going to be a different application process. And this was in 2023. And at this time, I'm like, okay, I've been a medical scribe for like 2 years. So I want to do something else while I'm thinking about applications for PA school. So I started looking through what can I do with my master's degree, and I ended up applying for a job as a lecturer. I applied for multiple jobs because I'm like, okay, I want to actually do something with my degree now that I've already done scribing for 2 years. And I wanted to kind of do something else. So I applied to be a lecturer, and I started lecturing in the summer of 2023 and loved it from the beginning. I'm still lecturing. I loved it. It's something that even in grad school, I was like, I want to teach in some capacity in my career. But I think actually having that career where my whole job is to teach, I was like, this is even better. Like, it's not just part of my responsibility, it's my whole responsibility to teach and to share with students and classroom management and to just come up with creative ways to impart knowledge. I just loved every bit of it. And then so I was doing that, I was scribing, and then I was also thinking about PA school applications. And it just came to a point where I just remember thinking, like, what do I actually want to do? What do I love doing? And I just came to that conclusion that I was already doing what I love doing. And it would be okay if I continued doing what I loved doing. And I do like medicine, but I love teaching. So I decided not to reapply for medical school and to stay in my career as a lecturer. So another thing that became a factor too was finances. I was thinking about med school and then PA school. I'm like, wow, I would have to actually take out a lot of loans and a lot of money. And that was something that I just wasn't willing to do at that point in my life. As I was working and earning a salary and thinking about financial freedom and stability, I wasn't willing to give up those many years of an income and then also acquiring debt for school. I was just not willing to do that again. And I remember just thinking, okay, but for some people, it's okay. Some people are like, yeah, it's fine, I'll just get the loans and then pay them off after. I just didn't have that mindset. And I feel like the fact that I wasn't willing to sacrifice time and finances told me everything I needed to know, that this was not something that I was willing to really give up much of anything for. And I was already really, really satisfied with what I was doing. So I think that the big picture is that this is something that I still kind of process of this journey that I was on for so many years to do one thing. And then on the way to doing that one thing, I found something and discovered something that I actually loved even more. And I think that's okay for that to happen. I do sometimes, though, think about the fact that I am not doing what I originally said that I wanted to do. And I don't really have any comments on that other than the question I always ask myself is, do I have peace with God and peace with myself? And as long as I do, there's nothing else that really matters. I think the noise comes in from other people. Are you still going to do this? What about med school? Or even from family. I think it can even come from yourself based on what other people are saying. Like, oh my gosh, did I make the right decision? Should I do this? But I always ask myself, do I have peace with God and peace with myself? So it is okay to be on a path for one thing and then find something that you love even better. It is okay to be on a path for one thing and then maybe make sacrifices to actually go after what you really, really want. I think in life that there are multiple paths that will work out. There's not just one way that you're going to be satisfied and okay. I think there's multiple pathways, and it's okay to go down whichever one. I will say I do admire people who are like, at 2 years old, they're saying, I want to be a lawyer from age 2. And then you see them at age 25 or 30 and they are a lawyer. They actually did what they said that they wanted to do. I will say that's just not always the case with everyone. And it wasn't the case with me. And that's okay. I am more concerned about, do I have peace with God and do I have peace with myself? So let me know what y'all think. Comment down below. Are you applying to med school, or maybe have applied to med school and you're wondering the same thing? Or you finished med school and you're like, yeah, I'm glad I did this. This is a good decision. Or maybe you are someone who you're working a 9 to 5, but you have something else that you love doing, but you're not really willing to go after that, which is okay. Or maybe you are really, really wanting to go after that, but you're not really sure how to start. Just let me know, what are your thoughts? What are your comments? And I think that when I think back on my journey of asking myself that question, do I really want to reapply? Something I wondered is, what if I got in? A year later, would I be asking myself, do I really want to do this? At that point, it's like I'm already in med school. So I trust that all things work together for good, and maybe that wait list was a way of being reminded to just wait a second and think, what do you actually want and what do you love? So thank y'all for listening to my podcast. Subscribe to my channel. You can click on my picture and subscribe, and make sure to follow the Instagram page. Comment down below if this was something that you resonated with. If so, subscribe to my YouTube channel, follow the Instagram page, leave a rating and review on Apple Podcasts, Google, Spotify, all the things, and I will see y'all in the next episode.